Greetings and welcome to yet another episode of Leah Love Juicy Diamonds. I am Leah Love, your host, and here I talk about hope and transformation and cover a broad spectrum of topics related to, courtship, dating, engagement, marriage, traditional marriage, gender roles, raising kids. And I tend to really speak to young ladies, early 20s through their mid 30s, and sometimes into the 40s. And I'm just one voice in many. So thank you so much for joining me today. Something that was really bugging me this morning was a recent comment I got on my Facebook page on one of my threads, which highlighted statistics about divorce rates amongst different types of couples. And it mentioned that Black women coupled with white men in marriages tend to have, I believe it was a 200% less divorce rates than the average rates. And so, some people were upset by that and felt that I was promoting interracial dating, or in particular promoting that Black women only date white men. And that's always been far from the truth for me, because I believe in character over color. And I believe in women absolutely going where they are celebrated. And so regardless of his race, whether he's Black, white, Asian, whatever the case may be, I am all about proactively encouraging women to open their options and simply go where they are treated the best. And one of the comments that I find that those who are members of certain quote unquote pro-Black organizations or movements, so to speak, they're always referencing this term self-hating Black woman, or he's a self-hating Black male. And it's particularly annoying because it's kind of one of those things that's tossed out like a baseball, and as a reactive response to anything that does not fit their narrative. And one of the things that is often, or one of the comments that's often hurled at Black women is that, that they are self-hating because a certain segment of Black women that's growing actually refuses to entertain poverty-restricted men. And so I guess that term would need to be defined. And what I mean by that is that a man who currently barely makes enough to support himself and who does not seem to have goals and measurable, steps taken towards improving his lot in life, who seems to be quite satisfied with where he is in life, and oftentimes lives on other women, including his mother or girlfriends, things of that nature. So for me, a man with no goals and no aims, and not just talk, but actual actions, and who's utilizing his natural inclination of a healthy man, a healthy-minded man, who's operating off of biology, which is to get out there and to compete, to get out there and tackle the world, to make vast improvements in his life, and to reach whatever pinnacle in whatever field or interest that he has. Generally speaking, it's normally a very natural behavior for a man to want to get out there and succeed at whatever interests him most. And when he does not have that drive, he typically falls to the bottom of the food chain, so to speak. And that's not to say that all men, just because they are men, are going to be top players or going to be highly aggressive about reaching their goals. There's always a wide spectrum of behaviors and mentalities, but generally speaking, those who do not exhibit those more healthily minded thought processes and strategies will end up, as I said, sifting down to the bottom of the food chain. And to me, a self-hating woman is a woman who chooses to engage with this individual who will end up making her life harder. And what I mean by that is that a woman who in fact loves herself has really come to understand that naturally women will eventually, most women will have children, and they want to protect their children. They want their children to survive, and not only survive, but thrive. They want to see the best for their children. And as women who are actually the ones who carry, human beings in our bodies, and who have to approach life from that feminine ability, from that aspect of life, we understand that one of the best things that we can give our children is our time and attention and energy. And unfortunately, one of the things that has been one of the greatest downfalls of particularly, I would say, the third and fourth wave feminist movements is that there is this banter that women can have and do it all at all times, when meanwhile they tend to ignore the large statistics of women who have written books and articles on it, who express it in their family, with their friends, that, working full time for 40 years, plus trying to raise children, oftentimes raising them on their own, is an extremely stressful and difficult life. Oftentimes it does push women down further into poverty levels. Many times they have procreated with poverty-restricted men who are not paying child support or not doing their full part. And I do know that there are cases where, the court side with the mom and the father actually really does want to be involved. And that's a totally different subject. But we find far too often in this, fourth wave feminist era that, young girls are being lied to and told that they can get out here and just have this fantastic superwoman life, that they're always energized and life is great and they're super empowered and they're out here, breaking down tall buildings every day and still cooking full meals, and house is clean to perfection, and she's able to actually converse with and get to know her children on a deeper level. These are things that they're told they can do it all. And it's very depressing for a lot of women. They suffer from anxiety, health issues, because it is overwhelming. I was a single mom at one point, and so I definitely know the stress that was involved with that, particularly since, I did not get child support either. And so I speak of things that I have experienced, and I think that having done some deep work excavating my own thinking and my own mindset and the ideologies that I bought into as a young girl and as a teen and a woman, I realized the mistakes that I made in terms of thinking that it's 100% okay for all women to have to be the breadwinner plus raise the kids and do it all by themselves in many cases. And I just think that that's a very dangerous reality that girls are being hustled into. And I'm here to be a voice that's quite opposite, because to me, self-hatred or being a self-hating woman is not being able to acknowledge or not willing to acknowledge that, I would like to actually raise my children. I'd rather raise them than have the system raise them, and the school system and, their friends raise them, and not be able to spend the necessary time with them to rear them and instill family values, to not be able to do that, and also within a situation where I'm personally having to be 100% stressed and responsible for the financial well-being of the family, or even if it's 50 to 60%, to me, that is a life not well lived. It wasn't for me. It may be working for many women, but I tend to speak to a lot of women, a lot of women friends. I've watched my mother grow up. I look at the statistics out here, and generally speaking, us getting away from two-parent households where if a woman so chooses, that she should be able to, stay at home, particularly during their infancy years, in their younger years, their formative years. I think that that's what we're doing a huge disservice to ourselves. And to me, I feel like that is a form of self-hating, in the sense that you don't value yourself enough because society is telling you that you are not valuable. You are not living a purposeful life if you're not out there in the workforce 24/7. But what needs to happen so that a woman can experience what she would like to experience in terms of her raising of her children, and taking care of the home, which is a very, very valuable job, and it's a full-time job, is that she is going to need a man who is not poverty restricted in his mentality and in his behaviors. And so a lot of times, particularly in the Black community, one of the first things a man will say is that in this economy, one income is not going to be enough. And I think that, again, feminists have done a disservice to women, rather than a service to women, in that because we feel like we have to, by force, get out there and take care of ourselves 100%. We don't need a man. We can do whatever we want, whenever we want, even if it's just having kids with various men that we're not really connected to, and then, utilizing system services or whatever else to help us shore up our deficits on the financial side. By us pushing this ideology, the men have followed suit. And so now they are not striving as much as they could, because they know that a woman will join themselves to him and take over 50%, if not more, of the income coming in to the family. Plus, she is still doing this full-time job of being a mother, and a wife, and taking care of the home. And so even if she's not able to do it to the fullest of her capacity, because she is working outside of the home, she still is the main one responsible for all of that other work that has to take place in the house. And generally men don't take as a large a role in that aspect if there is a man around. And so I think it's very disingenuous on both parts, because, at the end of the day, our children are suffering. Our children are becoming more and more vulnerable to social media, to predators out there, and to just setting themselves up for failure, to be honest. And if not failure, at the very least, a very, very difficult life, because there's so many of them that just don't have parents who are really involved in their lives, because they can't be, because their first job in their life is not raising their children and keeping the family together, but it's the actual day job. And that's where most of our energy goes. So to me, this whole scenario sounds more self-hating than a woman who is thinking about these things in advance, because she's been exposed to it in one way or another, and has decided to take certain steps that she will not engage with men who do not fit the capabilities of supporting a family, and increasing the family's well-being and wealth, and the survival of the family unit. It does herself a disservice. And so, those are my thoughts on this whole issue of self-hating Black women, because, it's become a buzzword right now, this hypergamous concept. But at the end of the day, it's so many layers to that. But I'm really quite happy that more and more young ladies are waking up to the concept that no, if they are going to play their womanly role, which they play whether they're working outside of the home or not, or if they decide not to work outside of the home, there's so many options that they're really looking into now, which is working from home part-time, or building their own business, doing odds and end jobs that they enjoy, that also brings in income. So there are just so many options that are opening up for women, where they can still, experience the life of a woman who's less stressed and less exhausted and less stretched, meaning pulled in so many different directions. And for her to think about these things starting wherever she is, I think that that's a great move forward. And I think that, it's unfortunate that they have to hear these type of terms from underperforming males who are not in their rightful, masculine, mental and emotional state, because they have succumbed to ideologies that have actually weakened them rather than empowered them. So this is Leah Love. Thank you so much for listening. And, definitely visit my YouTube channel. That's Leah Love Online, 3 words. You can also find me on Instagram at Leah Love Online. And I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.